You are now listening to the Dual Position Podcast.
The boys are back to talk all things Supercoach all season long.
Please welcome your hosts, Whisperer and Brew.
Hello, mate.
G'day, buddy. What's crack-a-lackin'?
Not a lot, mate. Not a lot. We're here to talk the Bulldogs. And there's more
Good.
There's more positivity in the room, I feel, today, as there was with the Raiders podcast. Not one of our finer pods, if we're going to be brutally honest, but there was still plenty. There was still plenty to discuss. The Raiders don't excite Brew and I a whole lot. And to be honest, when it comes to the ladder rankings, the Bulldogs don't really excite us a whole lot either. But there is more Supercoach, I guess, friendly players that we can touch on here today. I'm really keen about the Bulldogs. I've spent a fair bit of time on these notes. Hopefully, the teams look something similar to how they shape up. Some big news today, though, mate. We had this discussion. We had the Jordan Riki versus Kurt Capewell discussion. We both sort of leaned towards the right side of 2RF, which we thought was Capewell. But news today out of Broncos camp that Kevy Walters is leaning on Kurt Capewell to help whoever the six is on the left-hand side.
Yeah, Jordan Riki might have just made his way into my side, I think. That's only really fresh news, but as soon as I saw it, I was like, you know what? That actually interests me a lot. If he's got a guy that can feed him and put him over the line, any second rower that gets over the line will get a massive price boost. They can go on a run. Could be anything. We know he's a good player, so I'm actually really keen. Might actually drop a Bulldog for him.
So, yeah, Jordan Riki, one to watch. Watch him through the trials. We'll see how he progresses. Pretty juicy price to pick him up. But we aren't here to talk the Broncos. We're here to talk about the Bulldogs, mate. And I said the Raiders weren't very exciting. I've got them in 10th. I've got the Bulldogs in 12th, but yet I'm still way more keen to talk about the Bulldogs than I was the Raiders. As I said, I've got them in 12th for next year. Where do you have them sitting?
Well, this might surprise some people, but I've actually got them in 8th.
Ooh. I mean, Bulldogs fans have them in 1st, so 8th isn't too bad.
No, honestly, we've spoken in depth about their draw. And for me, 8th is really dependent on their first 10 weeks, obviously. I think if they can come out of that period 4 and 6, which doesn't sound like a great start, but given that you've played the top 4 sides basically twice each, I reckon they can storm home and finish 8th. And that's what I've done here, basically. I've looked at the draw and gone, you know what? Will they be 2 and 10? Maybe. Will they be 0 and 10? Who knows? Maybe they will be. But I honestly think they've got a lot more fight in them. They've got a lot more talent in them. I think Gould being near the club is going to do really good things for them, and I think they're going to show some heart. The Bulldogs typically do show heart, so I think they're going to fight and scratch and claw this year. And for me, either them or the Broncos is going to take 8th. And at the moment, I've got the Dogs.
I am not as optimistic, but look, I still think they're an improvement. It's very hard to go worse than last year when they finished 3 and 21, which included 1 and 11 at home and 2 and 10 away. Look, they've got a lot of talent, and that first 10 weeks is very crucial. They've got 5 very winnable games in that first 10 weeks. So if they can realistically be 4 and 6, I think 4 and 6 that they should be happy with. 3 and 7 might be a little bit below par. 5 and 5 would be fantastic. Look, their first 5 weeks, Cowboys, Broncos, away and then home to both the Queensland sides. They got Manly away, Melbourne away, Penrith at home. I guess the first 5 rounds doesn't do it justice. I'll quickly go into 6 to 10. They've got South away, Broncos away, Roosters at home, Canberra away, Knights at home in Magic Round. So the home advantage not so much there. So there's probably 4 or 5 games they could win there. It just depends on how they click, how their halves partners go, who's going to partner Matt Burton. Look, we'll touch on that today, who the outside back's going to be. The forwards kind of pick themselves, in my mind. It just depends on where Barrett puts a few guys. I think the forwards weren't too hard to try and get a gauge on. In saying that, I can't wait for him to blow it up, and that looks stupid. But yeah, as I said, mate, 3 and 21 last year, not great. 1 and 11 at home, 2 and 10 away. They ranked 16th in terms of total points scored. They scored 340 points, which was an average of 14.1 points a game. So just not enough points in the modern game. Obviously, when you rank dead last for that metric, not great. Defense was a touch better. They conceded 710 points, ranking 14th. So they conceded just under 30 points a game. That's got to come down. That's got to come down at least a try That's got to come down to maybe 24 points a game, and the scoring's got to come up at least a try. So if they on average can score 20 points and concede 24, you're gonna widen the gap. Not widen it. You're gonna tighten the gap that they had last year. And yeah, who knows? I don't even think a positive record is gonna matter. Like, I think you can make the 8 next year without a positive record. And
I was just looking at it, and I think they can get probably 12 wins on the season, and I think 12 to 13.
If you get 12 wins, if you get 12 wins, that's 12 and 12. That's a perfect 500. That should be plenty to get in the 8. I was thinking more along the lines of like 10, 11. So if they can go over 12, especially
I'm talking winnable games. It doesn't mean they will win all of them, but sometimes
there's going to be some games.
There's going to be games off top sides.
There's going to be games they lose against like the Cowboys and the Dragons, which they shouldn't. But there's going to be the rare occasion where they upset a side they shouldn't. So it will balance out eventually.
Yeah, they could beat a Para or a Cronulla, maybe even a Manly. Who knows? They could win those games from time to time, and if they do, it all adds up in the end. And I just think they need 12 wins, and I think they can get that.
Yeah, look, they play the Panthers round 13. So, I mean, that could be a winnable game. Depending on what Origin stars. Yeah,
this is what I mean. So their draw, whilst tough at the start, it's really good to finish when you factor in that, they play Penrith at that stage. They also play Souths in round 18 straight after Origin. Maybe guys rest. Who knows? It's possible.
Definitely. And they've also got an entire cavalry, and they've let half the NRL leave, and they've brought in plenty of players. They've got Matt Burton coming in from the Panthers, Josh Addo-Carr coming in from the Storm, Brett Naden coming in from the Panthers, Matt Duffy and Paul Vaughan both coming in from the Dragons, Tavita Pangai coming from the Broncos/Panthers, Josh Cook coming from the Rabbitohs, Max King coming from the Storm, Braden Burns coming from the Rabbitohs, and Reece Hoffman announced today, joining from the Tigers on a 1-year deal. When it comes to their losses, strap yourselves in, because there is quite a few names here. There's Nick Cottridge going to the Raiders, Nick Meaney going to the Storm, Renofa Tony going to the Roosters, Will Hopper-Wade going to St Helens, Adam Elliott going to the Raiders, Lachlan Lewis has been released, probably going to start working at JB Hi-Fi, Dylan Napa off to Catalan, Sione Katoa has been released, Dean Britt been released, Chris Smith to the Panthers, James Romanois released, Brad Dietz released, Watson Helata released, Kiko Manu released, Christian Crichton released, and Ofahigi Ogden released, as with Jordan Asiata. So not a whole lot of outgoings to other clubs. They've just scrapped a lot of the wages off the book and sort of cut ties with some contracts, which I don't hate. There was a lot of deadwood at the club. A lot of names there that I'm sure casual NRL fans wouldn't know. And just a couple of guys that were kicking around Reggies that didn't really offer a whole lot to first grade. So Gus has come in, obviously consulted with Trent Barrett and the board, and have cleaned house. And yeah, a couple of those big names, mate. Burton, Addo-Carr, Duffy, Vaughan, Pangai, even someone like a Braden Burns and your favourite Brett Naden. Like, all these guys are going to do a role. All these guys should be in the starting 13 as well. So it's gonna increase that quality of starting 13 tenfold.
And there's a familiarity with all of those guys too. They're all attacking weapons in their own right. And I think that's exactly what they needed. They needed to be able to score points. If they can start scoring points, then they can, focus on their defense at the same time. All of a sudden, the seesaw will swing, and they'll start scoring more than they are conceding, and they'll become a winning side again. And they're well on their way, in my opinion. They still need to sign probably a couple of key guys. They got their 9 coming, which is brilliant, but they certainly need a 6, in my opinion. If they get that, they're well on their way.
They've got their fullback sorted. They've got a plethora of guys.
It's on a 1-year deal, but I think
you extend it. Yeah, I think you extend Duffy. Like, I think you'll be fine. You've got some quality forwards. You've got, we saw Matt Burton when he played 7. He was phenomenal. So they've got a quality 7. You're going to need a 6. I'm not confident with the 6 I've picked in my 17. And you're probably going to need maybe a modern day 13. I don't want to see TPJ play 13. I want to keep him on the edge.
He'll be on the edge.
Yeah, maybe go with a modern day 13, and then you've got a really good quality spine. But as you said, mate, all those guys, big attacking weapons, and you're gonna need that. They came dead last when it comes to points scored, so you're gonna need an uptick in production. Look, I really like all those inclusions. There's not one of those guys I don't particularly rate, so I really like those. When it comes to releases, I mean, Nick Cottridge, great player, didn't do it at the Bulldogs. Nick Meaney, you would have liked to see him stay, but you understand that he goes when they bring in Dufty and they've got some quality wingers and Addo Carr coming in. Would have loved to see Renouf Atoni stay. As a Roosters fan, I'm sure you are very happy to see him in the door. He is quality. Will Hopewade, good name, solid performances week in, week out, probably getting over the hill, maybe a year or two away from really starting to decline, so I think they got out of that at the right time. Adam Elliott, I think, is the only one there out of those names that I would have desperately tried to keep, but the way things ended, you've got to sort of cut ties there.
I understand it, yeah.
Apart from that,
the same
mate,
reasons
no
they
one
picked
else.
up Paul Vaughan and they let go Adam Elliott, so I can see why they did it.
Apart from those, mate, I'm not too fussed about any of the releases. I feel like a lot of them, weren't really first world quality. Yeah, exactly. When it comes to injuries and suspensions, look, they've got Raymond Faitala-Mariner with his foot. It's listed as a round 1 return, but he's just started running again. He's not doing contact. He's not really doing anything, any fitness. He's just started running. So I think he's a long way away from round 1. I am really hoping he comes back and plays, let alone comes back at round 1. I'm worried that it was nearly a career-ending injury, this foot thing. It spurred up and became a lot worse than what the Bulldogs imagined. So I really hope for RFM he comes back sometime during the year. We really doubt it's round 1. Matt Dory, he's out with his knee. Max King is out with an Achilles. No time frame, but the reports suggest he'll be back quite early, maybe even trials. Same with Aaron Schopp. He's out with the shoulder until trials, so all those guys should be fit for round 1. Mate, round 1 sides. I think number 1 picks himself. Matt Dufty.
They didn't sign him for no reason. Matt Dufty is definitely the number 1. There's no competition there.
Now, I asked you a couple of questions off air before we started recording who is in and out of your sides. I don't know who's where. I just wanted to see a couple of names that were in. So I'm very curious to see who your wings are. Mine are Addo Carr, obviously. And I know you're big on Brent Naden. I don't know where you've put him, but I've put him on the other wing.
No, I've got Josh Addo Carr, obviously. I've got Lumi on the right wing, actually.
Yeah, he's obviously another one that isn't, I guess, he's not official, is he? I think he's on a train trial, but it'll be looked to be made official very soon.
Yep. But I've put him in the actual 5. I know others have other people in front, but I just think he's a weapon. I think getting both, Storm wingers would work for them, so I've put him in.
So, yeah, I've got Dufty, Addo Carr, and Naden. You've got Dufty, Addo Carr, Lumi. In the centres, I've got Braden Burns and Aaron Schopp. I'm pretty much sure you've got Naden in the centres at least.
Yeah, I've got Naden, and I also do have Burns, but only because I don't know if Schopp is ready.
Yeah.
I actually think if Schopp's good to go, he could push Burns out of that side and actually line up on the right side. Or then maybe even they flick Naden around to the right. I know he's been training at the left, but if Schopp's injured, then that would explain why that is the case.
Yeah.
I have Schopp in my best 17 ahead of Burns, but in my round 1 team, I have Burns.
Yeah, look, if Schopp is out round 1, I'd probably move Naden to the centres and I'd put Jaden Ockenbaugh on the wing. And you've got Lumi, obviously, but I'd put Ockenbaugh there. Probably feel he's a little bit more polished than Lumi, but time will tell. Mate, Matt Burton at 7, I have. Do you have him at half?
I've got him at 6, but yeah, I've got him in the halves. Going back just a second to Ockenbaugh, I really like Ockenbaugh. Problem is, he's always been a left side guy. And that's actually why I went Lumi, because Lumi is a right side guy. So I think if you move him to the right, you might end up having defensive issues. He did have some defensive issues on the left. So it is a concern for me. That's actually why I went Lumi over him.
That's fair. That's totally a fair assessment. You're picking players based off their preferred sides. I just think Ockenbaugh is probably too much class to be left behind Lumi, and you try and do what you can to develop him into a right-sided winger. If it doesn't work, then you've obviously got a great right-side specialist in Lumi. Mate, you mentioned Matt Burton in the 6. Who are you pairing him with in the 7? Is it my boy?
I don't want to.
My boy Fleho. Get around him.
I don't want to say this. I've got Jake Averillo.
Oh, okay. We have the same halves pairing by the sound. Okay, that's fine. I've just got them switched around.
I've got Averillo, but if I was picking that side, I would pick Flanagan, to be honest with you. I think he's better than Averillo.
Get around him.
I think he would partner well with Burton. But looking at everything I've seen from the Bulldogs, and I have got a little bit of inside word at the Dogs. I'll talk about a few guys that are really promising from their training camp over the course of this podcast. It looks like it's going to be Averillo, and that disappoints me because I would really like to see Flanagan and Burton line up together. I think they're a better partnering. But
is that because you want to see an organizer? It's very loose to use the term organising 7 when it comes to Flano. But are you wanting to see a more traditional halfback pair with Burton to give Burton more of a chance to play eyes up footy?
I think Burton in himself can be attacking enough that they don't need to then partner him like with an enigma. I feel like
just go the safe hand in
and
Flano.
Burton and play controlling football whilst you're still learning to become a new side, because most of this side is new. I don't really. It's not like having an electric 7 that some other sides have, and it works for them. I just don't think it'll work. I think it would end up putting too much pressure on Burton when Averillo makes mistakes. I would much rather have control on both sides of the field, play an old school style, let your attacking players that you've purchased and bought make the special moments. You put them in the areas, they finish it off, as opposed to throwing it all in and going, you're an electric type of 7, make something happen. We've seen guys like Milford, when they've been asked to do that, crash and burn. And I just feel like that's what's going to happen with Averillo. I'd much prefer Flanagan myself.
Dogs fans, NRL fans, whoever's listening to this, let me and Brew know. But Brew, how would you feel if the Dogs threw the book at Mitchell Pearce before he took off?
Oh, I'd love it.
Yeah.
It would be perfect for them. He'd be a great pickup for them, controlling.
Great pickup for Burton, I feel.
100%. He can take control. Burton can play off the back of it, which I feel like is what they need. I don't think Burton is going to be a controlling half yet. We saw last year over the Origin period that he wasn't the controlling half. Like,
he played his best when he just put the team on his back and said,
playing
stuff it.
Off the back.
I'm doing it myself. Yeah.
So it worries me if they think Burton's just suddenly going to become Cooper Cronk and take control and perfect kicking game and good areas and, calm everyone down. I just don't think that's going to happen straight away. I would have put a safer pick next to him.
And Flano isn't polished, but I feel he's more polished.
No, but
he's more polished
he's
than
also
Averillo.
come from a Roosters system though. So, at least he has experience in playing for a stud side with good halves and good areas. So he could play that style for them by all means.
Yeah.
And his dad's Shane Flanagan, for God's sake. Like, come on.
Someone get Shane Flanagan a contract deals so I don't have to listen to him on Fox every weekend. We have the same halves pairing. We just got them flipped around. Totally fine. Forwards, mate. Forwards. Look, I think Paul Vaughan picks himself at one of the prop spots. I've also got Jeremy Marshall-King at hooker. I'm assuming you do too. I hope you do. Oh, how can you turn your head against JMK?
Nope.
Okay, do you have Blondie?
Marshall King's not the 9 for me.
Do you have Blondie?
No, I don't. Nope, I don't actually.
Jackson Tapine.
So I'm going full smoky here.
Jackson Tapine.
On TLT, Josh Cook. Josh Cook will be the 9.
Got a lot of messages about Josh
Bulldogs.
Cook. Got a lot of messages about Josh Cook. A lot of people were interested.
He's the best half they have. He's the best
9.
hooker they have, and that's why I've picked him there. For me, you want to start a new side. You want to build all these new combinations. You're going to have a completely new spine.
Is it too much though? Is it too much for Baz?
Well, maybe it's too much, but you know what? After 2 games, they've got a horror run. If
you can just use that as the excuse if they play poorly.
Blood them.
Yeah.
If he's the best guy, then pick him. Marshall King for me, not the best guy. Biondi Odo or whatever his name is, he's a good player and he'd make a great 14, but starting 9, no.
Well,
I can't even remember who the other guy that you said is, but no.
I'll spoil my backline. Blondie Otto is my 14, so we'll touch on him soon. But look, I've got Jeremy Marshall-King as my 9. I've got Paul Vaughan as my prop. I also have Jack Hetherington as my other prop. I feel Heatho is probably better suited to start rather than coming off the bench when things are. Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like Heather's the kind of guy where you use him to set the tone and then have him play for 20 minutes and then bring him off before he punches someone in the head.
We've gone different there. Vaughan, Yeah, 100% has to start. He's my number 10.
I was waiting for you to say Vaughan. Vaughan isn't there.
No, 100%. Vaughan's there. Then I've got Luke Thompson in the 8, starting prop, has to start somewhere. You've obviously got him at lock. I don't. So, no, I've got Thompson and Vaughan experienced. Both of them are very experienced.
That's a very good front row,
They're
isn't it?
hard-nosed, very strong. Just lock that in. I'm not effing around when it comes to their props. Bang, that's it.
If they start with Thompson and Vaughan, that would have to be one of the best front row combinations in the comp.
It's up there.
Yeah. I can't think off the top of my head. Maybe the Knights have Saifidi and Clemmer. I'm going blank now. The Roosters obviously will have TKO and Collins or TKO and Jerry Hargraves, depends on who starts. But yeah,
there's the aging pack, but
it'd definitely be up there.
They're experienced, yeah.
You mentioned it, mate. Luke Thompson has to start somewhere. He's my 13. So yeah, I guess no surprise to see him not named at prop for me, but then be named at 13. You've got to put him in somewhere.
Yeah, I've got Josh Jackson in the 13. He's experienced. He does a good job. I don't believe that you do need the lock that you're talking about. For example, I think like
with this
becoming
with this halves pairing, you do. Jesus Christ, you need some kind of creativity with this half side.
Yeah, maybe, but you can also get that from your edge back rowers. And my edge back rowers, to jump the gun, Pangai, he can create. Corey Waddell.
Ooh, okay.
I'll get a little hot tip. I guarantee Corey Waddell will be the number 12.
Guarantee
on TLT.
You should have told me you were going to guarantee something. I would have had a soundbite ready, like a boom or something. Look, I've got Corey Waddell in my side. He isn't starting for me. I've got Josh Jackson and Tavita Pangai in my back row. I feel like Josh Jackson has to be there because he's your club captain and probably one of your best players. He has to be there in some capacity. The question is, where do you put him? Do you put him at 13? Do you make way for Hetherington? The only thing for me is I feel like Heather is better suited to start because you want him to set the tone rather than come off the bench. And that's, I guess, the only saving grace as to why, he's in the starting side. Otherwise, I do agree having Corey Waddell there. Really would have loved to see Joe Stimson kick on after he moved from Melbourne, but it just doesn't seem like it's developing. Seems to be behind a fair few in the pecking order, but I would have loved to see Joe Stimson work out. Unfortunately, it looks like it hasn't. Mate, yeah, so basically that's our starting side's done. I've already mentioned Bailey Blondie Otto is my 14 in that utility role. Who are you picking?
I'm not really carrying a typical 14. Like Toppany, I suppose, would be mine. I've got Jackson Toppany, so we'll put him as my 14. He's the creative utility type that can fill in multiple roles. So
Baz is big on him as well.
I've got JMK as my 18th man at the moment. So
the disrespect on Jeremy Marshall King's head.
I don't rate him.
Oh, mate. Look, he's nothing flash.
I'll be honest.
Nothing flash. He just does a serviceable job. He's a very good passer. He gives very good receipts out of dummy half. But he's not exciting.
Yeah, he's Tyrone Peachy from wish.com if you ask me. So
that's hot. That's a very hot take. That is, I cannot have that JMK slander around here, mate. That is not on. I think Jeremy Marshall King is a fantastic passer. Defensively, he's okay. He's gotten better, but doesn't really offer a whole lot in attack, which I guess you do want. Josh King, very good. It's not Josh King. Josh Cook. Basically, anyone with the surname Cook that plays hooker for the Rabbitohs has a very good running game. And yeah, I mean, Josh Cook's no different. So he could provide a spark if he gets the start. Also could throw Supercoach plans up in the air. I guess we just brushed over that as well. So if he starts, that's gonna cause havoc because you think you think Randall's just you think Randall is a lock. Randall's a lock for a lot of sides. No two ways about that.
I'll go Lock and Cook. If they're named both at 9,
you mean Randall and Cook? You said Lock and Cook.
I will go
double cheap hookers.
That's how excited I am about it. I will lock that in, and I will use that funds for days. I will lock down the rest of my side with that money. It
makes getting Cleary so much easier if you go against.
I've got Cleary.
Yeah, you do now because you've changed your side a bit, but it makes it so much easier if you, especially like if you look at it from my situation. Like I'm locked on Harry Grant, but if both these guys are named and there's no creative 14 named, then you just go double cheap hookers and you use the funds elsewhere. As good as Harry Grant is, he isn't Nathan Cleary. And yeah, you just
In fact, if there was double cheap hookers, I reckon I can carry Cleary and Turbo.
I wouldn't carry Turbo just because I'm gonna try and I'm gonna try and not anti-death. I'm just gonna try and death rate Turbo all year and see how far that gets.
You're gonna anti-pod him.
Yeah, I'm gonna anti-pod him at 8% at 8% ownership or whatever it is.
Well,
yeah,
it's
so
not really anti-potting, but
exactly. So Bally on the auto, you've got Topany. You're kind of not fussed on the creative 14. I've got Corey Waddell. You've obviously got him starting. I'm assuming this is where you have Jack Hetherington.
Yeah, I've got Hetherington on the bench. That's right.
That's
Impact
fine.
player. We know he can play edge. He played a little bit last year. We know he can play front row. So I just, that in itself became an advantage for me when drawing up this 17 for him being on the bench. I could see why you'd start him. I just personally, I think if Jackson's not starting lock, you're either moving him to the bench or you're putting him on the edge. And I know they want to start Waddell on the edge, so it was the only way I could structure my side.
They'll just drop TPJ. That's it.
Oh, yeah, totally.
So my bench setup is 1 utility, 2 middles, 1 edge. My 1 edge is Corey Waddell. My 2 middles are Max King, if he is fit. And I've also got Avasi Manafagai as my other middle.
I've got RFM, but he's got a big asterisk next to him.
So in my notes, I also put if RFM is fit, then Hetherington goes to the bench, Max King drops out, RFM comes to start, and Luke Thompson goes up to prop, and Josh Jackson goes back to 13. So if basically it looks like your typical Bulldog side as to how you have it on paper with Thompson, and basically we have the same forward pack. If RFM starts, I just got him starting with Hetherington dropping to the bench, and then like a bit of a reshuffle.
Outside of that, I got Sia Manafungi. I've got Jackson Topany. I've got Marshall King in the 18, and Max King is my substitute in.
The JMK disrespect. I cannot have this. Thank God I'm hosting this podcast because if I couldn't put up with any more of this JMK slander, I'd just boot you from the call. That is outrageous. I cannot have that.
Says the guy that was all over Cody Ramsey last season.
Hey, there was merit to that. He was 200k at fullback. Oh my God, that was such a bad trade. Looking back, I don't know what I was thinking. Anyway, we move on, mate. When it comes to studs, traps, and cheapies, whatever, however we want to call this, I've removed Josh Jackson from the studs category because last year it was Josh Jackson, and that was it. This is like when Luke Thompson was out and whatever. It was just him. He could get whatever he wanted. I've put him in the trap category because I feel like people are going to look at the average from last year and then just expect Josh Jackson, Mr. Consistent, to do it again. I mean, I feel like he just drops down 10 points in averages now because everyone else gets there. So how hot is it to have Josh Jackson as a trap despite probably going to be owned by about 2% of people?
I think those 2% of Bulldogs fans, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't think any of the,
I started with him. I started with him last year. He was fantastic. I think he was like 4.
Yeah, but you're enough, so that doesn't count.
I think honestly, like in all seriousness, last year I think he was 430k, and that was the first year he moved to lock compared to being on the edge. So there was some decent merit last year, but I just feel people are going to look at Josh Jackson and have in their head that he's this Mr. Consistent guy, and then just expect the same average, and I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, it's too much risk there for me. He's not even slightly on my radar, to be honest.
I guess we've started with one trap. I'll just finish off the rest of them. Matt Burton. I've got Matt Burton as a first 10 rounds trap. After that, could be good. But first 10 rounds, that Bulldogs draw is rancid.
Yeah, I've got Dufty as my trap for the same reason. I've got Burton as an asset because I think not looking short-term and looking long-term, the fact that I feel like we're going to pick this guy up for like 375, 400K in round 9 or 10 and probably own him for the rest of the season.
And that's why
I've got him as an asset because it's a long-term game, not just short-term. Short-term, I absolutely put my hands up and say, do not.
You and I have the exact same point. We've just put them in different categories based off our points. So I've got him as a round 1 to 10 trap. You've got him as a round 10 to 25 asset.
Yeah, and it's simply because, 15 rounds at the pointy end of the season is very important. So I've got him as an asset. Beside him, I've got Tavita Pangai Jr. as an asset. 80 minutes on a left edge outside of, a bloke who can certainly put someone through a hole.
80 minutes,
Massive for me.
55 minutes, 45 minutes, 40 minutes. Doesn't matter how many minutes TPJ plays. He's going to get his.
Yeah, I saw him come off the bench for the Broncos last year and get about 32 points in tackle busts in 16 minutes. So,
and then probably another 50 points just in offloads as well.
And then everyone bought him, and then he got suspended, and so the Tavita Pangai story goes on. But yeah, I feel like he's going to be a big asset. For I feel like
you can't mention I bought TPJ, and then the sentence always finishes with and then he got suspended. It always happens.
Yeah, I think the time at Penrith will have served him well. That club went on to win a premiership. He would have learnt some good structures and discipline. I think Gus Gould being at the Bulldogs will be a good influence on him. He'll come into that club almost as a leader of a pack. I like TPJ this year. I do. Yeah. I am planning to start with him, but if Riki and I believe Crew Waddell become options, it might change things for me.
I just wish he was like 30k cheaper because I'd be so much happier paying 530 compared to 570 or 5.
True.
Yeah.
539.
Yeah. 539. I don't know. It just looks better, and the 40k does help long term. I also have TPJ as a massive asset. If he can stay on the field, Luke Thompson is also a massive asset because the bloke just gets through work like there's no tomorrow. Problem is,
not so much at prop though.
No, not so much at prop, but at 13, and that's where I've got him. Okay. Yeah, I guess this was based off mine. But he gets through work. Like, he was touted as the best front rower in the world when he was coming over here. I think we all know that's not true. He's not Payne Haas.
We all know that any English player that comes over here touted as best player in the world.
Unless Payne Haas
otherwise.
Unless Payne Haas goes to the Super League and then comes back, I'm never hearing best prop forward in the world. But I mean, Luke Thompson definitely held his own. He came into the Bulldogs side in the middle of COVID back in 2020. I remember seeing things of him doing workouts in his hotel room, and then basically played like the first weekend he was out of quarantine, killed it, and has basically killed it ever since when he can stay on the field. The problem is it's never consistent enough.
It'd be interesting to see how he goes playing for a better side as opposed to a side where, he's slugging it up, he's standing under the goalposts and it's all for nothing. When you got something to fight for, you might see a different player. So that is a plus for Thompson. I believe they're going to have a bit to fight for this year. They're not going to be fighting for 16th. No way, in my opinion.
It could go the other way. Instead of him rolling his sleeves up being the only bloke to do it, he's now got other people around him and he can sort of take a back seat. I think it's going to go one of two ways. I don't think you'd see a consistent performance from Luke Thompson. I don't think you're going to see a 65 average. I think it might be close to a 70, or maybe down at 55. I don't see him doing the same as
70.
Well, he was 65 last year. That's what I'm saying. Like, if he's gonna take on this mantle of the guy, he's gonna increase his work rate or he's gonna fall off. I don't think with all the star power in this forwards lineup that they've got, I don't see them sharing the ball. I think one person is gonna do all the middle work, and then you're gonna TBJ isn't the kind of guy that's gonna do shit hit ups, is he?
No, he'll always have the hard runs.
And yeah, I mean, I've also got Josh Adokar as a dud because how many casual players are going to jump on him at a new club? I mean, he's come off the back of a career year. Like, he scored 21 tries last year. He's come from the
top side to the wooden spooners. Like, in reality, if you're thinking about it, anyone jumping on him is a fool. Not to put anyone off, but
bit harsh.
Think about it.
But fair.
He's not going to increase his average going to a worse side. So anyone that thinks that new club means that, he's going to be the bee's knees is kidding themselves.
But look at, I guess if you're going to use the new club, oh, geez, we had a bit of a pop there. If you're going to use the new club argument, you've got to have like a decent foundation for it. And the fact that Adokar was like one of the NRL's leading try scorers last year with one of his best seasons try scoring wise, you're picking him up.
He had Munster and Pappenhausen feeding him the
exactly,
ball.
That's what I'm trying to say. He's going to have Jake Averillo giving him the ball. Yeah, it's just, and his base isn't there. He's not Brian Toto. He's not going to get you a safe 40 points in base. Like, Adokar is very rocks or diamonds. You're going to buy him for 320k come round 15 when the Dogs go on a decent run. And then, yeah, cool, pick him up then. But, like, round 1, stay far away from Adokar as possible. And I'd never thought I'd have to say that, but his ownership numbers really surprised me, considering I guess, how obvious this looks on paper.
Yeah, I'm against it.
When it comes to X Factors, I'd own Paul Vaughan in a heartbeat if Stefano wasn't a thing. Like, I just have Paul Vaughan in there because I feel like we're just getting a resurgence. At 482k, Vaughnie could go up to like a 62, 63 average, depending on how short his shorts are come round 1. It's a good side. I reckon the higher the shorts, the higher the average. So maybe watch out for that in trials.
Okay. Are they as high as your shorts on Twitter the other day, mate?
Hey,
We'll just leave it at that.
I'll give myself a quick plug. Yeah, check out Twitter where I've very revealing thirst trap.
Yeah. Victoria's Secret model.
God,
right
this
there.
podcast is going off the rails today.
Yeah, Paul Vaughan, I had him as my X Factor as well. Maybe from a Supercoach perspective, definitely from a club perspective, I think he's going to do great things. I also think he is a dead set sneaky option. You know, if you don't want to jump on Payne Haas and you want to go for Vaughan and Udukamano and save the 100, and let's say you're trying to trim 100 off everywhere you can so that you can get a turbo or a Cleary, I wouldn't object to it because I really think that you are going to get a 65-ish average this year. So I'm 100% on board with your Vaughan X Factor. My other one is Brent Naden.
I was literally about to segue into your best mate Brent Naden as my next X Factor.
Yeah, so maybe not to start the season, but I think as the season goes on, you might be able to pick this guy up at an absolute steal. A little bit like I said about Burton, you know, the draw is the draw. It's tough. The Roosters, like Panthers, Melbourne, they're great defensive sides. I can't see these guys banging out 60 plus against them unless they get a try. If they don't get those tries and they bang out a 20 or a 30 and they do it for a couple of weeks, we all know what center's like. They're going to burn a lot of cash. If you can pick this guy up for 300 or anything sub 400 before they move into a good draw, 100%.
Yeah, well, he's currently 341.
Quote me on it during the season. I guarantee you at some point during the season when we get to close to round 10, I'll be saying, you know what? I think it's time I'm going to jump on Brent Naden and have a smoky shot here at a pod. And then everyone else will jump on, of course, because Brew's the king. But yeah, Brent Naden.
Turn it up. Look, he's 341 at the moment. He has a pretty decent base. I think he averaged 40. For anyone listening, Brew's trying to flex some made-up championship that he won on Twitter. So look, Naden's 341, and look, he has decent base. So I don't think we're going to pick him up at like 250 because I think his base will always hover him around that 290 to 310 range, which is what Bruce said. I think we can pick him up for around 300 if the Dogs do go on a bit of a slump to start the season, which I mean that could definitely happen. As much as Brew and I think they're going to go 3-7, 4-6, 5-5. There's a possibility where all this new players takes time to gel. It could take 10 weeks and they could be 1-9 or 2-8, and then they don't score points and we get Naden for 300, and then when they do start to click, we can pick him up. I've also chucked in Aaron Shop as an X Factor as well. I know that he's not in your starting side, but he's in mine, so I feel like it's only fair for me to chuck him in here because he is 385k. He did average more than Naden, and he does have fantastic base, and I think he's just going to improve year on year. I think he's in for a better season as to what he was last year with a better side around him, and if he can jag a centre spot, I think he's in the same conversation as Naden to pick up around that round 10 time.
Well, last year on the podcast, I literally said that he was going to be one of the first guys I picked next season because I loved him. You know, as it turns out, the Bulldogs went on a spree. The draw came out and it kind of, you know, raped them a little bit.
I think that's binding, mate. I think you've got to have Shop in your team round. I think that's binding, I reckon.
Oh, well, we'll see if he's named round 1.
But yeah, look, if he's named to start, 385 is a bit steep. I think he might leak a little bit of cash down to 330-ish, and then same as Naden, pick him up round 10. I feel like we could be flipping a lot of these guys. Flip guys like Panasini, flip guys like Sawali at, 450, 500, and then we can do heaps with that coin, especially if you don't start with Cleary. Like, you can look at targeting just before Origin or after Origin for Cleary once you flip your cows, so that could be a strategy to do. Mate, I haven't done any cheapies for the Bulldogs because apart from sort of Max King and Josh Cook, there isn't a whole lot there, unless you have any that I'm not thinking of. Because I'll be totally transparent. I didn't get a whole heap of time to write these notes. So I'm leaning on you a little bit here.
Yeah, one guy exclusively, I'll give you this, that's really impressing the Bulldogs during their training camp is Paul Amanati, I think his name is. He's available, bottom dollar cheapie. He's in the mix, to be honest with you. So, like your Braden Burns and these guys that came across as,
middling tier kind of centre
wouldn't
wings.
call them stars, but, guys that, are well known, they're on notice. Guys like Amanati, Naden, they're all in the mix. Shop, he's really impressing. The Roosters are actually trying to sign him.
Do we want to touch on this narrative that everyone's got around the Bulldogs and picking someone like an Emanati that you just discussed on? Because people are looking at the Bulldogs as enoughs. Like, if you're going to run enough, people are looking towards the Bulldogs because of the fact they play so late in the week, every week. If you're in the Nuff camp, are you looking at picking up these kind of specialists that play later in the week, or it doesn't overly concern you too much?
The first thing I look at is dual.
That makes life a lot easier.
Just because of trading. There's nothing worse than wanting to do a trade and you can't do it because you don't have the right dual, but you could have. So the first thing for example, Burbo. I've got Ben Trebojevic. I'm pretty confident if he's not 17th, he's 18th man. So he's there or thereabouts to play for them next season. There might be a bit of favoritism there because he is a Trebojevic. I think he's there or thereabouts, but the fact that he's dual centre, second rower, he's in for me. And I've got him in even though he costs 13 grand more than the bloke I'm talking about, Amanati, who I know is really close.
That 13K is worth the dual.
It's worth the dual. So, yes, in some circumstances during the season, if you're going for enough, then yes, you look for the late playing guy who, can become a perfect loop. But early on, I don't so much look at the loop per se. I do normally carry 2 MPRs. I don't know whether or not I can do that this year.
That was my next question.
But we do also have extra trades. So, look, I'll make a decision probably only at TLT. If carrying 2 MPRs means that I can carry a Cleary as opposed to carrying a Hines, and I always look at combinations of 2. So I can't really give an example off the top of my head, but Cleary and someone versus Hines and someone. If I look at it and go, you know what, with the MPR, I can carry Cleary and I feel like I'm going to get equal, if not better points, then I'll do that, even with the new rules and COVID, because we've got the extra trades. But that's something I need to think about more because this is very, very fresh.
The common one I'm seeing from people is Campbell and Cleary versus Sexton and Teddy. Like, that's just a rough example. And for me, I'd go Sexton, Teddy over Cleary, Campbell. That's just me. But closer to the season, we'll do some kind of strategy podcast. God, I hope I bounce back this year when it comes to ranks, because it's gonna be awkward if I go crap 2 years in a row. But we'll do a strategy pod, and then we'll touch on the benefits of running an MPR versus not. I'm always against running MPRs because I always like the depth. But rounds 1 to 5, is it even worth looping when you've got a guy like Burbo on the bench who, if you get 17th man, let's be realistic, he's probably going to see 10 minutes a game and score you 3. Like, and I guess that's the thing that you guys have to weigh up if you're looking at running enough, because like I get sent teams all day, every day, and a lot of them just have no bench depth, and I won't really look at those because it's not. You need to go back and fix your bench. When it comes to 1 or 2 nuffs, is it worth running someone that's going to score so poorly when it's going to affect the loop?
Early season, it's really hard to loop early season. Like, unless Turbo's banging out 200, 250, and it's like a given that you're going to get a 500 captain, so it doesn't really matter if your MPR gets 1, you're still going to work out better off it. It's kind of changed from the olden days where, 90 or 100 was a loop. Things have changed drastically.
Mate, last year...
I looped a 150 last year and I was worse off at one point.
Did you loop Cody? That was my point. A lot of people loop Cody Walker when he got 150 and then beat themselves up when Turbo scored 200. It's like, if you're looping 150, you cannot be up. It
wasn't that week.
But there was a week like that, and I remember people were so upset because they would message me or message other pages or whatever, and we all gave the same advice. If you score a 150, you loop it. And like, you can't beat yourself up because Turbo scores 200.
I think Fafita was involved in mine. I can't remember.
I remember that.
But
I think it was. I remember that week. I think it was maybe 11 or 12. I do remember that one because shout out to Aman
he scored a
Talks.
hat trick.
Aman Talks Supercoach, I think, did that, and he came out worse off for it as well.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I did too. But to be honest with you, I normally go 25 strong with my squad, with the point being that I'm going to make cash. And last year, I just changed the game completely. I think I took 3 MPRs last year because I said, you know what? I'm pretty sure Walker's going to play. I'm pretty sure Sawali's going to play. And I know a lot of people are starting the season with him, but I'm not going to do that. I relied on them coming in at some point so that I knew that I could do a sideways trade, enough for new cow, I guess. But I told myself when they come around, no matter what the situation is, I'm going to get the new cow and I'm going to replace the nuff so I can then start making cash. As it turned out last year, everything worked out perfectly. You know, Sam Walker was in early, and I think I started with Madden last year because I think I started with Madden over Sam Walker last year simply because of the duels.
Yeah.
And I ended up trading Madden to Walker, and then Walker made a shitload of money. And I did similar with Sawali when he came in. I cashed someone out who'd made me a shitload of money, and I just kept rolling with it. So I'm a little bit on the fence with what is better because I know quite a few guys that go heavy on the MPRs. I know
It's
Guy,
a gamble. It's
does
always
it
a gamble.
year in, year out. He always takes 2 or 3 so he can get the best possible side in round 1. And it might have even been him that convinced me on one of their pods to do that. And I did it last year and it worked. So, like, I had a really strong side, I felt, 17-wise, because I carried the MPRs. I just made sure that as a player, I didn't let them sit there for the season. I prioritized making them a trade at some point so I could start making money at some point.
Maybe I've got tunnel vision, but like I feel like this year it's not that hard to build a team. Like there is plenty of value guys there that you don't need to be nuffing 3 guys. But maybe I'm just got tunnel vision with just looking at my side.
It just depends. Like Piakura or whatever, he's not going to be in my 17. I don't think he's going to be there in round 1. And every man and his dog has him in their side, for example. So that's going to be a guy that I need to replace. Max King, I've got Max King in my side pretty much from day 1. Is he going to be there round 1? I really don't know. He's another guy I've got to replace. I think we're going to end up with situations where we all need to knock it up to Maroa or Franklin Pele. I can't think of someone at second row off the top of my head, but we're going to end up needing 30, 40K in all these different positions to bump up to people as opposed to bottom dollar cheapies, which I don't think we're going to have really any bar TAF. Maybe TAS.
I've deliberately left 250K in my kitty for that exact reason. So come Teamless Tuesday, I don't have to pull apart the side too hard to get these guys in. So I haven't, because if I have to carry MPRs, I'm just going to do it, and I'll just tactically play around that from then on. Are you locked on Cleary?
Especially with the 5-round trades.
Are you now locked on Cleary? Like you're not moving off him?
I'm pretty locked on.
Yeah,
at the moment, I'm carrying Taff and Ilias. And in round 3, I'm planning to use 5 trades. So I'll pick the 5 best cows that I can at that point, make sure I'm making money, but I want to try and start with Cleary, Teddy, and Pappenhausen. So I'm as close to getting to the ideal awesome foursome with Trebojevic, and whichever one of those 2 fullbacks is the guy this year from right from the get-go. So with that 5 trade, I changed my tactic a little bit, and I'm going to try and start with Cleary, use the 5 trades in round 3, save the second, I think, for the 2 buys. Makes sense. And that's what I'm thinking off the top of my head going into the season. So think about a tactic when you're building your side and think about when you want to use those trades. And I think it will go a long way into helping you plan how you're going to get a side come TLT.
All right, bit of a tangent at the end there, bit of strategy. But that's going to do it for today. Bulldogs chat, very, very rogue today. As you can see, Brew has a can of VB. So that's probably why the podcast went a bit rogue, but hopefully you enjoyed the bit of banter. And a little bit of strategy talk at the end there from a guy who finished top 100 last year and a bloke who hasn't had a good finish in 2 years. So hope you enjoyed it. That's going to do it for us today. As always, ciao for now.
Ciao for now, guys. Have a good one.
Bye.